We also want to thank Ben Leotoa and the Rainier Art Center for allowing us to host our event here.
Hi everyone, I'm Cammie Wei, a UW junior in biology. On behalf of OCAGS, we wanted to encourage people to only take the number of books that they actually need in their family since we have a very limited number. Also, if you're an OCA Asian Pacific American Advocates of Greater Seattle member, we have free t-shirts. Well, t-shirts are over there. Modeled by our interns, designed by Dani, Canaleta. Dani, go ahead and raise your hand if you're here. Over there in the back. Just stop by the booth on the right before you leave, and we will try our best to get you the size that you need. If you would like to become a member of OCAGS, we have forms and will accept square payments. If others are interested in purchasing the t-shirt, they are $15 each. Also, we have note cards designed by our interns for the OCAGS.
So for those of you who have seen the movie this comic book is based on, you may recall the end of the special lion dance performance. For our comic novella, to celebrate its completion and debut, and to wish for happy new beginnings, we are pleased to start the program with blessings from the Mach 5 Kung Fu Dragon and Lion Dance Association. Please enjoy.
All right, what a wonderful performance. Okay, so moving on to the next segment. Our comic book is the first in a trilogy called Passage Through Seattle, the Wong Family Saga, 1842 to 2023. Slide of trilogy, please. Okay. It is the comic version of an earlier 2019 film funded by the Department of Neighborhoods called From Gunsam to Golden Spike. in honor of Golden Spike Day. To provide some background on this project, I would like to invite our supervisor, Dr. Connie So, of the American Ethnic Studies Department and the president of OCA Greater Seattle.
Hey, thank you, Cammie. Thank you, Kenzie. And thank you to all the volunteers. So the people you guys saw standing up here, they're the ones that actually put the entire event together. And they're also a lot of the illustrators and writers for our trilogy. So it's been a real pleasure to serve as a supervisor of this trilogy. It's a lot of work, and it's very stressful, but at the same time, I see a lot of growing friendships, and of course, the completed work, to me, looks fantastic. So the trilogy is our collective way to combat stereotypes and ignorance about Asian American history and contributions. It also allows young artists to express themselves while drawing parallels between current day events, what happened in the past. And this is particularly important, I felt, during the pandemic. So we started this project, the trilogy, during the pandemic, at least the comic book version of it. Our stories also address issues about masculinity, femininity, perseverance, and Asian American pride. Our publications are intended to bring a stronger sense of belonging and self-awareness to all quote-unquote marginalized communities. The trilogy, however, was not initially planned. It just kind of fell in because of a lot of other circumstances. So back in February of 2019, the University of Washington American Ethnic Studies Department, OCA Asian Pacific American Advocates of Greater Seattle, and the Wing Luke Museum all wanted to honor the 150th anniversary of Golden Spike Day, which is the day the railroad was completed. And as you guys may know, they actually took a photograph initially with the Asian Americans who built it, and then they took another photograph where only one Asian American was left in the photograph. And then when they had the 100th anniversary, they also made it so that the guy who was Secretary of Transportation said only Americans could have built this railroad. But the thing is, they weren't Americans because Chinese and other Asian people, in fact, African Americans at that point as well, were not allowed to become US citizens, naturalized US citizens. So we thought about having speakers, but we knew that the majority of people we knew who were really knowledgeable about this subject were probably going to be celebrating at Promontory Point, Utah, where Golden Spike occurred. So after some discussion, they talked about doing a play, reading poetry, and all these other things. The students decided, let's make a short film, because they didn't want to memorize things, and you know, how difficult plays would be, and it's already very stressful. We had a very short period of time in February, because May is Golden Spike Day. So we got a grant. The city of Seattle cooperated with us. We told us what the situation was. They gave us a $5,000 grant. And in about 5 weeks, students wrote the story, acted, filmed, and so forth. So what's particularly spectacular about this, okay, it's not, again, we chose people not because of the best actors, but really it's whoever is available in my Asian American Studies 101 class. And I happen to have 150 students. And so, and if you guys watch it, it was shown. It was Wing Luke Museum's contribution to the streamed Seattle International Film Festival. And actually, it did pretty well, far better than we expected. And I think it allowed us to see that many people wanted us to continue the story, to talk more about it, but we really didn't have much time. It was mostly done in 3 weekends. So because of people's encouragement, and we're hearing that the Chinese American veterans were going to finally get medals, recognition by the US government, and this followed after the effort for Japanese Americans and Filipino Americans. And just to add, you guys, it was actually Japanese Americans, Filipino Americans that really pushed the Chinese American veterans to go for the Congressional Medal. So Cafe Post in Seattle wanted OCA Asian Pacific American advocates, and especially wanted our interns, the students, to do something for it. So we started thinking, okay, let's do another film. That was a lot of fun. And then what happened, you guys? This is all 2020. The pandemic happened, right? And then we went in quarantine. We had about 2/3 of the film done, and then we thought, okay, it won't be that long. We don't have to be quarantined that long. And it went longer and longer, and I'm sure you guys know, I always jokingly say COVID-19 for me became like COVID-30. So anyway, a lot of people change appearance, okay? And we got older, we got heavier, we got a lot of things, right? So we wanted to do something, and we thought, what can we do? We put all this effort together. And then it was decided, and I'll give a lot of credit to I'll mention later, the person who really was responsible, but he decided, let's go ahead and turn it into a comic book. And from there, we had the first comic book in a yellow tone. And you guys can, actually don't have it up here right now. In a yellow tone actually ended up doing very, very well too. And the people who helped draw it were my facilitators. It just so happened that year that online, all my facilitators seemed to know how to draw. And so they went ahead and did it, and Hana Natsuhara and Heidi Tandiono, and then we got the other people involved too. Okay, and of course, through the whole process, I'll go ahead and mention Hana Eckelberg probably did the most. And so, In the Yellow Tone did so well that the Fifth Avenue Theater, in our the first book we did, which is actually second in the trilogy, it did so well the Fifth Avenue Theater asked me for permission to consider it to turning into a musical for the Fifth Avenue Theater's anniversary. So it's still pending. We also have other people interested in republishing the book. Right now it's sold out. Okay, it was officially sold out a few months ago. So let me tell you GS2, because everything really started with Gum-san to Golden Spike. And then we have another trilogy, the last one, the sequel, which is about KingDOOM, how Asian American protests saved Chinatown, about the KingDOOM's encroachment. Initially, they wanted to take over, they wanted to build a KingDOOM at the border of Chinatown, which would really damage the borders. Okay, from all this, we got mitigation funds. This is how you have a lot of Asian American agencies in the Chinatown International District. But you guys know who in following news. About a year and a half later, we have the same fight going on right now. So much that Chinatown, Seattle International District is considered one of the national endangered sites of the United States. So let me go ahead and talk about Gum-san to Golden Spike, because this is one that really started all. Tremendous work has gone into creating GS2, as we call it, okay, because the two Gs and two S, right? The film, and I think even more so, the comic novella, which I was involved with, but not quite as much. By that point, the students, they had their vision, and I very much supported. Returning to college after meeting asynchronously was particularly challenging. And you guys, I'm sure, are aware of all the different things that we all didn't anticipate. So there are changing circumstances, emotional issues, graduation status. It altered a lot of people's commitments. But through it all, the person who saw the film, directed and produced it, and also pretty much directed, produced the comic novella is Han Eckelberg. And so he was an undergraduate student when it first began in American Ethnic Studies and Art. And then as a graduate student in communications, Han wrote, edited, laid out, and then produced Gum-san to Golden Spike, the comic novella. He was able to retain the talents of several students who worked on In a Yellow Tone, stayed on with Gum-san to Golden Spike, comic novella, and actually there were 4 of them that stayed on for the KingDOOM, the comic novella as well. We also had the city of Seattle back us up. But I want to give a little recognition to the 4 people who worked on all of it. Hana Natsuhara, okay? And she's our liaison. She started this as an undergraduate student, and she was our liaison to the city of Seattle. She helped take care of the budget and everything else, you know? And we had to ask for many, many extensions. Hana did most of that. Brooklyn Hose, okay, who was one of the students in my Asian American Studies 206 class, and she did fantastic artwork when she was doing the skits. Those of you guys with 206, you know what I mean. We couldn't do it in person. She did it by comic, and it was just, you know, I thought, she's speaking my language at that time, right? Okay, so, and of course, Heidi Tandiono, facilitator, and has graduated and still helping out right now. And finally, Wong Eckelberg. What? Okay, where's right there? And she pitched in whenever it came to art and everything else. Han will probably talk more about this. But I also want to mention a lot. There were 16 other fantastic writers, illustrators that helped out. But the people who pitched in last minute, Iris Hamilton, right there. Dylan Hartano. And Yusheng Che. Yusheng? Look here, okay. I really want to thank them because it was such short notice that we asked them to do so many things for us. And one thing I want to point out, you guys, and a lot of people had challenges, me included. You may notice in your first edition, there is some stickers on top in the inside page. And I've taught a lot of students at UW. This is my 35th year at University of Washington now, teaching. And so I had an Iris Williams. And I'm pretty good at numbering names, so once I have a name stuck in my head, it's very hard to change it. So Iris Hamilton, who I, again, have great fondness for, as you guys know, I went ahead and wrote Iris Williams. We were so busy proofreading everything else, I missed it. But because we can change the cover, but we could change the inside pages. Unfortunately, the part that she actually drew, Han was in charge of that, so that part is, the name is correct. But for the inside page, with all the volunteers and writers, the volunteers you guys saw here, they went ahead, and it was 2 days ago, we went ahead and pasted another panel right there to cover it up. So you may see Iris's name stands up because it's not in alphabetical order with the other ones. And you guys know that's definitely your first edition. And so the students, I give them a lot of credit because I don't have very good eyes anymore. They actually did all the work. And so thank you all of them. But it goes to show how much they support each other. And so anyway, I want to thank all of you guys for being here. I'm actually surprised there are 2 other major events going on for Asian American community right now. But I'm glad to see a lot of my students. You guys have had a chance to visit South Seattle, Columbia City. There's a lot of really cool stuff around here. But anyway, thank you once again for being here. And again, I thank all the volunteers and all the writers and illustrators.
Thank you, Dr. So. This premiere also marks the 55th anniversary of the beginnings of the American Ethnic Studies program. This collaborative work of the students in creating this trilogy is featured in a 2.5-minute film created by our OCAGS interns, with Dani Canaleta serving as the executive producer. In honor of the 55th anniversary, please enjoy the film.
Asian American Studies is about community. It's about storytelling, and it's about history. For me personally, it's about facing self-hate and internalized racism.
Asian American Studies is knowledge and power. Being able to learn about my past histories has been a huge help in myself and understanding my community.
Asian American Studies is about oral histories, visual histories, written histories, song, dance, and music.
Asian American Studies is about Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, and Native Hawaiians. It's about liberation. It's about learning about myself.
It's about the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act, the mass incarceration of Japanese Americans, the colonization of the Philippines, Hawaii, Guam, Samoa. It's about refugees and immigrants. It's about resilience in the face of oppression. It's about us.
Asian American Studies is about coalition. It's about not letting our differences divide us.
Asian American Studies is history. It's about respecting the achievements of old Asian groups, as well as understanding our ancestors.
It's about discovering your heritage. And it's about discovering who you are.
Asian American Studies is perspective. We're the fastest growing racial group in America. It's about the future.
Writing the script, directing and filming the movie, costuming people, setting up meetings, and everything until it became a comic book. For a comic novella, Han was chiefly responsible for editing the script and converting it into comic book dialogue. He did all the layout, lettering, and organized our meetings. Everyone, please welcome Han Eckelberg, our primary narrator for the book reading.
Thank you, Kenzie and Cammie, for introducing me. Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing? Oh, not that well. How's everyone doing? All right. So before I go on and talk about the book, right, the comic novella, and kind of break down some of the scenes, we invite our artists, our amazing artists, to come up here and talk about, the process and their favorite moments. I want to first give thanks and acknowledgements to the amazing team throughout the years. So don't mind me, I'm just going to rapid fire and spit out some names. At the end, if you heard your name, I want you to stand up and let's save the applause after. All right. So first, I want to thank Chantadeth Chantalansi, Tina Dang, Daniel Doan, Hana Wen Eckelberg, Bruce Wong, Miguel Lariano, Lei Lei, Tuliana Manaquaj, Michael Wong, Cecilia Su, Larry Andreessen, Roger Arenas, Dean Bakerberg, Chris Kalilam, Aldrin Anton, Aaron Carbonell, Andy Chen, Emilio, Jenny Don, Emilio Diaz, Brett Eckelberg, Martin Goldman Kiers, Christina Ha, Sheena Ha, Arlene Liu, Willen Liu, Hong Din Lin, Francis Lin, Hui Wen, Justin Win, Kyoki Silvana, Tatiana So, Heidi Tavares, Tommy Tran, Darian Villi, Bowen Wong, Michael Wong, Xuan Wu, Yo Kong Zhao, Dani Canaleta, Yuxing Chen, Mason Dewey, Stephanie Gonzalez, Helena Goose, Dylan Hartano, Brooklyn Hose, Frederick Liu, Hana, Caroline Natsuhara, Milo Win, Arthur Sugiyama, Wei Sum, Heidi Tandiono, Iris Hamilton, Jax Wakas, Justin Wong, Peter Wong, Felix A, Vivian Chan, Doug Chin, Chinese American Citizen Alliance, Chinese Real World Project of Stanford University, City of Seattle, Department of Neighborhoods, Jean Colin Park, Renton, Washington, Lorna Hamill, Kubota Gardens, Seattle, Washington, Min Chao Lei, Fruit and Produce, McPherson's Fruit and Produce, Mokfi Lion, Dragon Lion Association, Elijah Matamoros, Sean Magi, Panama Hotel and Tea House, Yun Petrie, Seattle Chinese Garden, UW American Ethnic Studies, woo, UW Waterfront Activity Centers, woo, Wing Luke Museum, woo, and that's everyone. If you heard your name, please stand up. Let's give them a huge round of applause. That's right, thanks y'all. The amazing people within the room. Okay, now that we gave acknowledgments and to all the people who helped out with the project, here's how the program's going to happen. We have audience members. If you have not already, pick up a free comic novella in the back corner, okay? And as stated before, we have limited copies, but please feel free to get one. We're going to be talking about the book, so having something in front of you and seeing the pages as we go through is going to be pretty helpful. Next thing, we have the GS2 Committee. Again, GS2, Gum Saan Golden Spike, GS. We're going to go through our favorite moments. We're going to comment and talk about our process and maybe other things we learned along the way as we did this project. The next thing, we have Tian Me by Dylan Hartano. Oh, he's going to be singing a song for us. And we have a final Q&A and, of course, a book signing and the event conclusion at the end. Now, I'm going to talk about my role in the project. I was the creative director. And as part of the creative directing, initially, right, when we start off, you hear like, oh, we did the In a Yellow Tone. That was great. And we want to do a trilogy now? A trilogy after what was a really hard project to complete already? I was like, we're going to take on this project. The only reason I would take it is for the artists. So for the artists that we have, for In a Yellow Tone, for Gum Saan Golden Spike, and for the future installment, that was the whole point for the project. And I figured this is such a great platform, we should do this. The other thing, this is for the history. This is for our ancestors, that recognition. And you're going to see that as we go through the book, why it's so important to stress our contributions. The other thing, it's for this book in particular, it was a whole year of indescribable amount of effort. I wish I can go into details of how much effort was put in place for this book that you're holding in your hands right now. But everything that you see, my role especially, the framing, the storyboarding, the lettering, the whole narration, and then it became the dialogue and the script itself. Everything you see in here, that was my contribution to the story. But the one thing that you're going to notice too is that you will not see my artwork. You will not see my artwork in this book. But all the artists know what I was sending them. This is what they were seeing. So if you're looking at the screen right now, you might see maybe slightly better stick figures. You might even see some references Like, you see Pokemon, you see Team Rocket right there, right? All right, focus on Team Rocket real quick. Check that out. Check that out. All right, and let's give it a round of applause for our artists for interpreting that vision. I'll be kind of going back and forth on the presentation. You'll see a little bit of the storyboard and how the artist interpreted that. But, you know, all that to say, it takes a huge amount of communication, organization, trust. Huge emphasis on trust, because you got to trust in the artist and their skills. You got to trust the deadlines. You got to trust the script. You have to trust a lot of things. It's a very multifaceted step process, and it all happens with conviction, which, you know, we have the book today, and really just very extremely proud of the GS2 committee and everyone involved in the project. So it is a combination of the GS2 committee's efforts created the student novella that you see here today, Saan to Golden Spike. Whoa. With that, we now begin our book reading. So if you have your book, we're going to start with Act 1. You kind of flip through the pages. I'm not going to, of course, spoil like huge storylines or anything like that. There's more to be discovered for reading the book, but we're going to go step by step. Each chapter, you're going to see this page pop up, is going to be highlighting a chapter created by Yusheng Che. So Yusheng, you in the audience, please, you stand up. Check out those amazing covers. Let's give a round of applause. Original artwork by our student artists here. So we're in Act 1. And in Act 1, this is the introduction of Wong Ho Ping. You know, we get to learn about the first character. We're going to be following along for a few acts now. And we're going to learn about the circumstances of 1852 China. Right? There's a lot of civil unrest. There's huge amounts of turmoil going on in the country as a whole, and especially in southern China. So the focus here is the desire to leave and to return. Right? Ho Ping, Wong Ho Ping, he is the symbol of youthful hope. Hence his name, Ho Ping. Yeah. Wong Ho Ping. And, you know, here's our original actor, Daniel Doan, right here, being animated. And that's the thing. In China, right, he is experiencing a lot of issues, especially with sustainability for his family. But you hear of a place called Saan. Now, Saan is referring to San Francisco. It is literally Gold Mountain. It's the land of opportunity, right? And Ho Ping, right? He may not know too much of the circumstances in America. He knows what's going on in China. But whether it's for better or for worse, he's willing to take that risk overseas to really help his family and change their destiny. So he knows there might be a harsh reality ahead. Now we're going to invite Heidi Tandiono, one of the artists for Act 1. And they're going to talk about, you know, returning to the process. They helped out in a yellow tone. And anything else on their thoughts on the characters and thoughts on Act 1. Let's welcome up Heidi, everyone.
Thank you, Han, for the introduction. Yeah, I'm going to try not to spoil too much of the storyline, so I'll try to stick to talking about the artwork. Yeah, so working on this trilogy, I was constantly learning more and more about the process of illustration and storytelling, and also about the community of Asian Americans in Seattle. You know, so for all the webtoon lovers out there, you know, when you're like wishing for like a new chapter to come out, or like you wish that the chapter was longer, well, I finally understand the artist's point of view. It's a really laborious process, like putting this whole thing together. And actually, when we kickstarted this book, I was going through a bit of an art slump. And so pulling myself out of that to really try and like push through this project was really challenging for me. And looking back, I think my art style has always been a little bit inconsistent. But it's kind of funny because now, like when I look through the book, I can really see how my art style transformed over it. Drawing Act 1, I absolutely adored the characters, especially like getting to flesh out like connections and friendships that Wong Ho Ping, the main character here, develops over his journey. And I'm really glad that I was able to be a part of showing that and illustrating that. From this slide, the middle picture is from scene 7 in Act 1, and that was really my favorite one to draw. I think it's a visibly different art style than the other scenes that I illustrated for. And while I was thinking about how to carry this one out, I really wanted to use like colors and lines that were softer to sort of give that nostalgic feeling. I really connected a lot with the scene because living so far away from family, it's really nice to like have little pieces of home that you find along the way. And I think that's really what I felt drawing this scene out.
Thank you, Heidi. Now we move on to Act 2, Gamsan, which means Golden Mountain Boy. Now, we learn about the Yi brothers, Wong Ho Ping. We catch on a little bit on Act 1, too, but in Act 2, we start to introduce the Yi brothers. He's in a trio now, right? All three of them, they're in the circumstances of 1853 Gamsan, or America in San Francisco. And the focus here, risk, luck, and how not one story is ever the same. So it's the emergence of 3 different stories now. As you go through, I'm just going to summarize just a little bit. But, you know, Ho Ping, he's the idealized success. He returns back successful. He is that Gamsan hawk, literally getting gold. Yi Dakwa is a semi-success, right? He's able to attain some of that wealth. And, one moment.
Check, check. Can y'all hear me all right? Cool, okay. And Yi Dakwa, right, he attained some of the semi-success. But we learned that success comes with a lot of other responsibilities. And one that you're going to see throughout the book is the weight of family responsibilities, those expectations, and how it might send those characters right back to where they started. And of course, one of those family expectations is, you know, helping your brother out. His brother, Yi Dukmin, trapped, he's stuck in America. And now you see within these 3 storylines, 3 different outcomes can result from this. You have one that's the idealized expectation, and you have 2 which, honestly, I feel like shares more of the reality, the circumstances and the hardships a lot more people faced when they came over to Gamsan during this time period. Now I'm going to invite Iris Hamilton. Same thing. You know, they're new to the GS2 committee, but I want to hear from them their process, how it was starting a comic novella, as well as their thoughts on the characters and any other thoughts on Act 2. Let's welcome up Iris, everyone.
Hello, everyone. I'm Iris Hamilton, and I'm illustrator for Gamsan to Golden Spike. I'd like to spend a few minutes to share what this book means to me and how it's shaped my understanding about my community. I had very little knowledge of Asian American history growing up, and although I was secure with my identity of being half Chinese, I felt that I lacked context about the social history and racial injustice of the Seattle area. Upon entering the University of Washington, I made efforts to remedy that feeling. I sought out classes that would provide me some more insight on ethnic studies, and I was lucky enough to meet Professor Connie So, who introduced me to this history, sparking my interest in Asian advocacy and representation in our communities. This project created a space where we could discuss rooted histories and how its branches have spread today. Other than inspiring me as a student, this project has also pushed me as an artist. I wanted to use my love for drawing in a way that would benefit our community, and this project was the perfect fit. I taught myself anatomy and stylization quickly to ensure that the emotions and actions of the characters were portrayed well. And I had so much fun playing around with colors, concepts, and facial expressions. So if you see this first panel here, I wanted to do a more like chibi kind of style because it kind of like shows a montage of time. So I tried to have some fun expressions. And also I played around with colors at night because in the dark you can't really see anything, but I wanted to add some kind of warmth to that. So you see the smell of yummy food. In the middle, here's like a conversation and a lot of more, a bit more like comic style, and at the end I tried to do a bit more realistic. So there's like a blend, and I really had to like learn how I wanted to encompass those feelings. I remember sitting in my room late at night, invested in the art. I could draw for 6 hours straight and not realize it had been that long. I was having so much fun creating and adding to my own spice to the art that time flew by. Although I had lots of fun drawing, I also faced some challenges. Sometimes I wasn't sure on how I could depict something. I understood the tone and feelings of the moment in the story, but being able to communicate emotions and images to encompass that was a challenge. I would research moods and how to create them, color associations and perspectives, so I could communicate the images I was seeing in my head. Additionally, I had to do a lot of personal research to ensure that I was accurate as possible. I spent so long on Pinterest looking for horse, old boat, mining town, and even California dirt, because I just really wanted it to look really accurate. Understanding the injustice against these Chinese immigrants, too, added another touch of emotion. The thrill of potentially striking gold, coming to a new country, and the plummeting of highs when your hard work is stripped from you just because of an identity. This context was so important to me, and I really wanted to portray that. This project was a major point of reflection for me, and I've learned so much through this interactive way. Since I've joined this team, I've met a diverse group of friends with so many talents, and it's been a really great learning experience through interacting and learning about history in a creative way and seeing these stories come to life. I hope to continue my studies and love for art so that I may continue to actively learn and serve my community. And I urge all of you to do the same and do your part so that we may be able to take the initiative to grow, support, and nurture the community around us. Thank you.
Thank you, Iris. Now we move on to Act 3. And Act 3, you can guess from the title what's probably happening. Wong Ho Ping returns. He comes back home. And as you can expect, being a Gumsan Hak, he's kind of a big deal. Being a Gold Mountain boy, you're carrying that wealth. People know about you. And you're kind of seeing that. But the real gold for Wong Ho Ping wasn't the gold in San Francisco. Sure, yeah, he needed to get that to achieve what he really wanted, which was a life with Wu Yu-er, right? Oh, love interest. And of course, helping his family. Now, the focus here is, again, returning back to that Act 1, why we leave, and of course, why do we return back home? And, hey, we have Lei right here, animated again. And I want y'all focus on that wedding panel right there, okay? This is what Heidi did to transform what I sent her. Do y'all see that? One more time. Okay, focus on which one you want to look at for transformation. Okay, the alignment is crazy. It's in the same place, but it looks 10 times different than what it was before. All right, one more time. Ready? Oh my goodness. Okay, now we're going to invite Heidi again. I'm going to ask her what it was like drawing this relationship and, any other thoughts and additional things on Act 3. Let's welcome back Heidi.
Thank you. So Act 3 was actually really fun to draw. I love drawing the rom-com scenes, and it was especially cute to see Wong Ho Ping's return home and sort of flesh out the childhood friends to lover kind of relationship. Depicting Wong Ho Ping's relationship with Wu Yu-er, it's really beautiful, and I think it shows the challenges and impacts of the circumstances on both his family and loved ones. And if that's not true love, then I don't know what is. I found Act 3, Scene 4, which is the wedding scene, to be especially challenging, especially because of all of the details and little things that went into the background decor and just really building the scene as a whole. I personally really hate drawing backgrounds, so this really pushed me to work on that, and I'm really happy with how everything came out in the end.
Thank you, Heidi. We move on to Act 4. So again, if you have the book right now, if you just want to go to Act 4, or you just want to hear me talk, or you want to do both, that's great. We're on Act 4. It's an uncertain future. Okay, in Act 4, we're learning that there's still continual conflict in China. It might be getting worse. Maybe it's getting better. Whatever is happening, there's not much progress. And the family, everyone's experiencing this. There's a lot of fear and hope for the future. So the focus here is the generational connections and disconnections, because now it's the next generation who has to make some changes. They have to create their own destiny. We're focusing now on Yi Lingling and Wang Xingdan. Yi Lingling is the daughter of Yi Daguo. So she is predestined to be an anchor for her family because, one, she's disconnected from her father due to the fact that he's returned back to Gamsan. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the book. But you see, she has to take up this huge responsibility and be this anchor for her family. You have Wang Xingdan, the son of Wong Ho Ping and Wu Yuer. And he's predestined to leave. You know, if you're a Gamsan Hawk and there's not much options for you, there's no guarantee of success, but you know what happened and worked for you, you might be following that same predestined path to do the same thing. So Wang Xingdan, he's destined to leave. He may not return. For this act, we're going to invite Dylan Hartano, and again, new to the GS2 committee, and I want them to talk about, how it was beginning this process, their thoughts on the characters, as well as on Act 4. Let's welcome up Dylan, everyone.
Thanks, Han. I really want to say that joining this project was really a miraculous turn of events. I had wanted to be involved in American ethnic studies for a really long time. I never had the chance to because I was always focusing on my STEM classes. I graduated as a computer science major, but there was always part of me that wanted to know a bit more about my history and the history of Asian Americans in the United States. So at the basically spring quarter of my senior year, I talked to Professor Connie So and, asked for a chance to be able to be involved in this project. I had not drawn or done any artistry work since high school, so a lot of this coming in was hoping that some of my old art would have been okay, trying to learn new things. I mean, I think I bought an iPad like 3 weeks before joining the project, just making sure that I can be prepared when time comes. But I really was happy to join this event, be able to work on this process. I was able to kind of focus on that more artistic part of myself. I remember getting basically a hand reading from Professor So and say, hey, actually, you're pretty artistic. And learning how to it's like part of like the lines on your hands. Anyways, basically, I learned how to draw faces a bit better, how to do shading. As you can see, part of these pictures are from me from very beginning of the project and closer to the end. Each step I kind of learned new things. I think I've probably redrawn these scenes probably maybe more than 10 plus times to make sure that I get the faces correctly, and I really thought I was able to grow from this experience. In terms of the characters, I really thought it was nice to draw the story of Wang Xingdan and Yi Lingling because this is basically similar to us. We're young people having to make a decision for the future. I was about to graduate, and I had to figure out what I wanted to do with my life and figure out what I want to do, right? And of course, I guess these are spoilers, right? You'll see in the next scene what Yi Lingling and Wang Xingdan want to do, right? And Wang Xingdan will head off to America, right? And it also kind of is similar to the story of my parents. I mean, they didn't know what they were getting into. They said, hey, let's go to America and get a job and see how it's going to be. I thought it was amazing to hear from their story and talk to them while I was working on this project and see, hey, we actually didn't really know what we were going to sign up for. We didn't know if we were going to come back or stay here, but as you can see, I'm still here. My parents are in the crowd right now. But I thought it was a wonderful project, and huge props to all the people here and all the volunteers. Thanks, Professor So and Han in particularly, for being patient and taking a chance on me.
Thank you, Dylan. And I heard, Dylan, you mentioned it was a hard time getting the faces, and really the effort paid off. If I bring this back, all right. Eling Ling on the left, Wong Sing Dun on the right. All right, over here who played them, Amanda Quach, Tommy Tran. Look at the resemblance. That is exactly them. Only change that I see that stands out is the fact that Tommy Tran over on that side, Wong Sing Dun here, he actually has the shaved head. You know, of course, when we filmed the project, we can't ask our talent to just shave off, you know, their bangs for the film. But, you know, it's okay. We at least have this book now to show that true vision. Let's move on. We're going to talk now about the historical inserts and poems. This is going to be the part one of this one. You know, at this point, if you're going through the comic, you're noticing tons of unique panels, right? Unique pages of artwork and historical representation of what happened, events during this time period that's influencing the story that you're seeing right now. Before we talk about those inserts, you're also seeing a variety of poems, right? Poems that were extracted from Marlon Haum's poem book, and we're going to have Hana Natsuhara, apologies, returning to the process, you know, coming back from In a Yellow Tone to Saan, and, you know, talking about that transition, as well as themes on the poem designs and what they learned too. So, Hana, please, if you can come up here. Let's welcome up Hana, everyone.
Hi. So I was also involved in the Yellow Tone book. So coming back was really fun. I will say for this one, I got to be a little more creative with what I did. And I think since I learned a lot from the first one, I got to have a little more creativity and freedom with it. For the poems, Han sent me the poems, and then I read through them and then wrote them down. For the faces, I used the faces of the actors from the movie that they first did as like an homage to that, and to really use the expression and the work that they did on that. And then I did a little bit more just kind of decorative stuff in the background. A few of them are a little bit more thematic, with some having like trains as part of the talking about the Golden Spike and the railroad, and then of course with Yuduk-min and the jail bar cell. But yeah, it was really exciting to come back and work on it and have a little more creative freedom to kind of make it a little bit more my style. But
Thank you, Hana. Move on now to Act 5, the reality of America. So, as we alluded to, Wong Sing Dun, he is returning back. He's kind of following his father's footsteps. So the focus here, right? Oh, what's that? Act 6, Reality of the Railroad. Act 7, Golden Spike Day. All three of these acts, we can summarize them within these three main points, all right? It's talking about family associations. It's your connections, right? Overseas connections. It's about labor and laws, especially in America during this time period. So the main overarching focus is the unfairness as well as the unwavering unity going on during this time period. Okay, resistance and resolve. You know, I feel like a lot of kids, maybe my generation, even younger, or even, even just as adults, maybe we come to the conclusion that, hey, Asians, we're passive. You know, we don't really know how to stand up for ourselves. We kind of keep our heads down. We do what we're told. We don't speak out. And for me personally, I cannot fathom how that is so far from the truth, right? Our ancestors just being in America, that was resistance, right? Just living and doing what you can in America is resistance. The fact that they also protested and fought for their own rights and unfair labor conditions, right? That's resistance. They've always been advocating for each other, not just ourselves. So, this scene really encapsulates the fact that, hey, we've been fighting. We've been sharing our voices and our strength. Not only that, we've also demonstrated tremendous resolve, because we know that the main goal is to help support our families. And, sometimes that means you just got to, work hard and grind out these long, arduous hours. But not only that, they're not just being silent about it. It's a collective community who's experiencing this impact. And I really appreciate these frames and these acts right here to show y'all just some of that resistance. Oh yeah, hey, here's my here's my storyboard frame for you for reference. I'm gonna play it one more time because again, we talk about backgrounds. I sent this picture to Brooklyn, all right, and I told Brooklyn, please, you have to, for historical reference, you know, a little wide shot. We got to see what they're working with. And I know drawing all that was not an easy task at all. But I know what was an easy task. If you look over to the panel on the left, you'll see just men, 12 packed up, all right? I mean, these railroad men, like, they're eating rice and, like, salted fish, but manage a tremendous physique. Like, how is that even possible? And they're shirtless. All right, anyways. Oh, yeah, that's right, too. I want to show the power of like, hey, we finished this project, the railroads, yay. And if you recognize this anime, it's All Might. But yeah, anyways. Any anime fans? Oh, you guys. Let's invite Brooklyn Hose, everyone. She's returned to the process, thoughts on the characters, and on acts.
Okay, yeah. Hello, everybody. Yeah, so these are just a little bit of the panels that I drew. I know for returning back, making this second book, I felt like I was more mentally prepared because I knew what the process was like. I felt like in the yellow tone, I felt like my style was so inconsistent, and it was a goal of mine to try to make this book look more consistent stylistically, even though like sometimes I did mess up. But I just want to say too, with all these shirtless men, when we were just doing a meeting update and I uploaded my art, and then I just remember Han's reaction was just like, whoa. and because I don't think he was expecting them to be shirtless, and I didn't realize they weren't. Because I just kind of thought, you know, they're on the railroad, they're probably like, it's probably hot or something, or like they're probably doing a lot of work, I don't know. But he said not to change it, so I think he's a fan. But yeah, no, it was really fun to make. But I did want to make a point to kind of show like these men are strong, like they're not weak or like passive, like a lot of Asian stereotypes like to make men out to be. So I wanted to show more masculinity, even, I mean, hopefully it's not toxic, but you know. But yeah, I would say too, I just really enjoyed the process. One of my favorite acts is probably, I need to make sure I get this right, I think it's Act 8. It says 7 on there, but yeah, we'll get to that, but that's my favorite act. But yeah.
Thank you, Brooklyn. All right, we're moving on to Act 8. So this is the exchange, and you know, exchange, if you think about the word, what's being exchanged, right? On this act, we're focusing on Wang Xingdan. He is the literal and metaphorical bridge, you know, Wakyuyan, which if you hear that, that means Chinese bridge. That's what you refer to Chinese overseas. So he's in literal bridge because he's Wakyuyan in America, but he's also that metaphorical bridge because he's now reconnecting with Yi Lingling's father, Yi Dukhua, who again we met earlier in Act 2. Now, the reconnection with Yi Dukhua leads to a lot of simultaneous storylines. You know, we're learning about Yi Dukhua's life in America. Now, Yi Dukhua, he kind of symbolizes again that maybe common storyline that we might hear of the experience of Chinese in America. But again, it's not all of them, right? He can only represent so much. So Yi Dukhua, he is experiencing just a lot of turmoil, but he's making the best out of his conditions. So when we look at this book, we're seeing the importance of family, the conclusion of the Yi brothers' stories, the weight of the expectations, and again, making a life worth living, you have to find someone or something to fight for, just given the conditions that you are in. And another shout out has to go to Archie. Archie did the middle portion between those two scenes, and they demonstrated the tremendous weight that Yi Duk-hwa was going through during this time period. It's a true development and analysis of the character himself and Archie. Archie's not here, but please, can we just give a round of applause? Really appreciated those art styles. So, throughout this entire comic novella, you're seeing we're actually reinterpreting what gold means. Gumsan as a state of mind. And gold means something for each character, so as you're flipping through the comic novella, hopefully you too can reinterpret what gold really meant to them. Now we're going on to Act 9, the 100th anniversary. So here, it's 100 years later, and of course, it's the return of Joe Louis Wong and Cindy Tan. So if you were here last year, if you got the book in a yellow tone, if you know the book in a yellow tone, you'll know that Joe Louis Wong and Cindy Tan were some of the main characters from that last series. And they're here now because they're part of that same lineage. It's overdue recognition. They're here as proud representatives of their ancestors. And the focus here, remembering our ancestors. But it also talks about the narrative and positions of power. When you're in a position of power, you have a lot of control and responsibility. The words that you say, the stories that you validate, those really affect more than just the immediate community, but everyone who's involved. So when you have someone like the Secretary of Transportation, Mr. Volpe, mention that, hey, only Americans could have accomplished this amazing feat of the transcontinental railroads. Only Americans. Sure, he is uplifting Americans, but what about those who didn't have citizenship, right? This is a very intentional tactic and a dig towards our ancestors. During that time period, sure, the main narrative was, congratulating these Americans who contributed to the transcontinental railroads. But guess what? We are removing and starting to erase a lot of those contributions just in that exact same moment. And as you know from American history, a lot of that is still happening today, and we can still feel those circumstances and consequences today as well. So that's why the narrative positions of power, creating a book like this is so important. I'm going to invite Brooklyn again, talking about drawing this disrespect. I know we skipped Act 8, but hey, if you want to talk about Act 8, please do. Thoughts on the characters and thoughts on Act 9. Let's welcome up Brooklyn again.
Okay, yeah. So for this ending act, I really wanted, it was very intentional with the contrast between light and dark because of what, I'm not going to spoil it, okay, but what is taking place here. And I kind of wanted to show like when one community or demographic is like centered and in the light, what communities does it shroud in the darkness. So we can kind of see that like this is a victory for them, but it's a loss for someone else. So yeah, we can think about that maybe introspectively or, like the way our world works. But yeah, that was a little bit of some motifs that I put into this act. But it was really fun to make. I had fun with the backgrounds, the details on the train. I was like, oh my gosh, like I have to make this look like a train, and it was kind of hard. But I think it turned out okay. And yeah, I had a lot of fun, and I'm glad that, there's we've demonstrated a lot of advocacy through art and through this book, and I really support the messages behind it. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Brooklyn. We're returning back to those historical inserts and poems. Again, we talked about the poem side, right? You're reading a lot more of these poems throughout the book. But now I'm going to invite Hana to now talk about the inserts. Their thoughts on the historical inserts and why the inserts are so necessary. Hana?
So for the inserts, I was a part of a group of artists that really worked on them. So these are basically informational panels and artworks that help contextualize the story and really like tell the history that the story then follows around. We have ones about laws passed against the Chinese Americans on the West Coast from 1850 to 1867. One on the Treaty of Nanjing, and a lot of other historical moments that really affect the story and just tell the history of Chinese Americans and Asian Americans. So they're very necessary to kind of contextualize the story and to really help you understand what was happening, maybe the motivations of characters, and just why these stories are important to tell. And again, similar to the poems, I really enjoyed these. I had a lot more kind of artistic freedom to kind of make something more creative based on these subjects. I think one of my favorites to do was on the Treaty of Nanjing. I looked at a lot of like paintings and historical paintings of that time and of the actual signing of the treaty. And then looked at artwork around the wars that happened around the Opium War, and then looked at the text of the actual Treaty of Nanjing and overlaid that on it. So I had a lot more freedom to kind of make something very meaningful to me, but also very artistic, and kind of put these layers in that maybe we didn't have the time for really with Yellow Tone, with the format and everything we did. But I really enjoyed that, and want to shout out the artists that also worked on the inserts with me, because they also did amazing work. But yeah.
Thank you, Hana. Now, one thing you should note, too, from the poem side, you see the text that's written on the poems themselves. Do y'all see that? Right? I asked Hana when they sent it to me, hey, what font did you use? Right? I see I sent you like one mistype, word misplaced. Like, what font did you use? I'll just correct it myself. And they said, oh, nah, I wrote that down with my own handwriting. I was like, what? Ridiculous. Because now there's just more work for Hana. But when I heard that, when I read that text, I was like, that's massive respect, right? Because that gives us more of that authenticity of what it's like writing letters to our loved ones overseas. Great detail, and I really appreciated that. Yes, yes. Now you see all three images of this trilogy that's planned out. We have In a Yellow Tone produced. We have Gumsan to Golden Spike produced. And, of course, the future installment, KingDOOM, in progress right now. And as we talked about narratives of power, we may not be in the positions of having this tremendous status or power to showcase and promote certain narratives, but as students, as members of the University of Washington, we are using our platform that we have right now and making the most out of this opportunity to showcase these stories about our ancestors, about our own local history here in Seattle, and really our community that is here today and even beyond that. So I want to take this huge moment, if we can, please give a huge round of applause to our amazing artists, to our volunteers, to our committee, to our hosts, and really everyone involved in this project. That concludes the book reading. Have a great time reading this comic novella, everyone. I now welcome back the hosts. Thank you.
Tian Mimi, or Sweet as Honey, is one of the most popular Chinese songs of all time. It is a 1979 Mandarin Chinese song by legendary singer Teresa Tang, adapted from a 1940s Peranakan song about sampan boats called Dayung Sampan. The Peranakans are proud Indonesian and Malaysians of Chinese descent who practice a distinct blend of Chinese and Southeast Asian culture. Teresa Tang composed a cover of Dayung Sampan while she was studying at the University of Southern California. Nowadays, it is often referred to as an overseas Chinese song and is used in movies about Chinese in Malaysia, Singapore, the Philippines, and other areas with significant Chinese communities. Since then, it is the theme song and title for one of the most popular Hong Kong films of the 1990s. Tian Mimi, better known in English as Comrades, Almost a Love Story. To sing Tian Mimi, we are inviting Dylan Hartano, a Chinese Indonesian and co-treasurer of OCA Greater Seattle. Everyone, please welcome Dylan.
Thanks, everyone. I'm going to be singing the Peranakan version, Dayung Sampan, first, and then I'll sing Tian Mimi. So for those that know Tian Mimi, I welcome you to sing along. Dayung Sampan, Dayung Sampan, berlabuh datang bandar cinta sampai Singapura. Dayung Sampan, Dayung Sampan, berlabuh datang bandar cinta sampai Amerika. Dayung mendayung sampai ke Amerika. Dayung mendayung, dayung sampan. 甜蜜蜜，你笑得多甜蜜，好像花儿开在春风里，那一起春风里。啊，在梦梦里。 All right, you guys, we're gonna sing together, okay? The lyrics are right there. Okay, ready? 甜蜜蜜，你笑得多甜蜜，好像花儿开在春风里，开在春风里，在梦里。 梦里，梦里见过你，甜蜜笑得多甜蜜，是你，是你，梦见里就是你，在囊囊里。 在哪里见过你？你的笑容这样像熟悉，我一时想不起。啊，在梦梦里。
Wonderful performance. Another round of applause. All right, thank you to all of our speakers. Now we turn to the question and answer segment. Please give a minute or two to set up our panelists. Are there any questions from the audience? If you have a question for our panelists, just raise your hand and Kenzie will bring the mic to you. Sorry about that.
I can start us off. I want to ask the panelists, what was your favorite scene to illustrate? You can start with... Oh, here.
Okay, let's see. I don't, without spoiling, there's this one part that's very intense, and there's like some very interesting expressions. So I remember I like took my iPad and I propped it on the desk, and then I like used myself as a reference. So for an angry, I was like, practice like, no, no. So like I would just take pictures of myself and use those as references. So if you want to go see for yourself, they're in there.
For me, I gotta say, you've already seen it already, but Heidi's marriage picture or drawing, it's crazy. I really like the art for that.
It's so hard to pick. It's all really good. I love the lighting that Brooklyn does in hers, and Heidi's expressions are really amazing. For me, I think I already mentioned it, but I really like the piece I did for the Treaty of Nanjing.
Yeah, there's a lot of awesome scenes in the book. I love a lot of Heidi's scenes because like the nostalgialistic feel that she was talking about earlier, but yeah, I just thought that was really cute. But I guess my favorite scene to illustrate, like I said earlier, was Act 8. Just because like the lighting was really fun for me, and yeah, and it kind of tied into like the mood of like what I was trying to convey with like old connections and secrecy, and it's like it's a little dramatic too, so I like that, like a little drama.
I'm so touched that you guys like my art. I think I already mentioned my favorite scene to draw, but I think my favorite scene to read was actually the one where Brooklyn drew like the shirtless men protesting. When we started this whole novel, I remember we had a discussion about how to make half-bald men good-looking, and it's so hard. But yeah, what I love most about it is that it really reflects on the perseverance of the Asian community.
Everyone's art. I can't pick one, but if I were. But I will say the one I was most shocked at was actually Iris's panel where I think, the one where she's saying she made all those angry faces. Yeah, actually that whole scene in particular, when I first read that, I was like, dang. Iris, how'd you get that angle? How'd you do this? You gave the story life. And now I know that you actually were involved like as a reference for that. So I would say that's my favorite.
All right, for our second question, now that GS2 premiered, go ahead.
Audience.
Hi, my name is Elliot, and my question is, would any of you be interested in leaning more into the comic book or graphic novel side of it, being involved with like publishing in the future, or do your interests take you elsewhere?
No. I say that because, editing a lot of that stuff, any book creators out there, I don't know how y'all do it continuously. I don't want to be like that dismissive. I might return to it. I think with this team, I totally would too.
It would be really cool to have our current work published, I think, in a more official sense, I guess. Would I continue like as an illustrator for a career? Maybe not. As I mentioned, like it is a really labor-intensive process, but I'm really proud of all the work that we put together as a team.
I would say for me personally, storytelling is one of my passions, even though I need to be more disciplined. I get burnt out really quickly, but I love storytelling a lot. Like I want to make my own webtoon in the future. I want to make children's book. children's books, like when I get older, or even like now. I don't know why I can't do it right now. But, but yeah, no, so yeah, publishing is something I definitely want to do, like, throughout my life. I don't know if it's going to be like my sole career. Like, it's probably going to be one of the many things that I want to do, but yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely be interested. Well, to be fair, I wasn't working more on the hard work that like Iris and Brooklyn and Heidi did of doing the actual pages. I was doing like more of the kind of fun artsy side. But I have been doing, for the last book, KingDOOM, I've been doing the layout for it, so I've been getting more of a feel for it, and I do enjoy it, at least at this point. Maybe I'll get tired of it, but I would definitely be interested in doing more of this.
Yeah, in like probably the next 2 years, this is probably what I'm going to be doing. I mean, now that I'm OCA Greater Seattle Treasurer, I have to, thank you, I have to pick up the books and reach out to the publishing companies. So of course, now this role is on me to, help produce the book. Of course, Hana is the main designer and layout person, so it's going to be fun to work with her. I'm not sure about my future, but it would be nice to do drawing again, and I don't know about a comic book, but we'll see.
Similar to what Brooklyn said, I'm actually really interested in art and pursuing it. Maybe not as my main thing, but maybe like a side hustle. I have my own art business where I sell prints and stuff, so I've always wanted to expand and make my own like little book of like my own characters and stuff, so I think that'd be really fun. Maybe we can all work together again, but yeah, I think that'd be really cool.
Do we have any other questions from the audience? Anyone? Yeah, I'll go around.
My question is, what did you learn about the Chinese and Asian American experience in the United States that you didn't know before? And how did it impact your life?
Start, yeah. Okay, I'll start. So I mentioned how I didn't really have a lot of Chinese history and just Asian American history in my classrooms growing up, so it was very Eurocentric, and then I never really explored that. And then coming into college, you're required to take the humanities or whatever. But I thought that I would take this opportunity to really understand the histories behind it, because I feel like there just wasn't any I didn't have any exposure to that representation. So I explored some classes, and then I learned so much about how not just Chinese, but a lot of Asian Americans had immigrated over here, and how a lot of things were started or like greatly impacted by those communities. So I think I had no idea that Chinese were so involved with the railroad until I started working on this project. And I think it was really eye-opening to me to see that there were people here before my family moved over and existing in this space and still persevering. So I think it was really eye-opening and really inspiring, because you're coming to another country, potentially not even speaking the language, you have no connections. I can imagine how scary that is. So just thinking about that and then reflecting was just a really good learning experience for me.
So I think the first couple pages we have some of the history that we include going up to Gumsan to Golden Spike. I think I'll give two answers. So one is the building of the Kalama Line. I had no idea that basically there was no recognition of Chinese building the railroad. To think that all this work, and I mean, thinking about it, if I came up to school and said, hey, I've been working on this project all by myself, where I had a whole team with me, right? That's so unfair. I mean, it doesn't make sense at all. And the second thing is that what really surprised me, and I guess it's not really a surprise, is that many of the Chinese that were fortunate enough were able to come back to China. There was a connection between going to and coming back, and we see that even some people here, there's a connection to back in Guangdong, China, and Seattle and San Francisco. I find a similar story with like my family. I know me and my parents and my brother stay here, but my uncles, my aunts, some of them went here for college. Some of here have some businesses here, but live in Indonesia, and they come back and forth year by year. And it's good to hear that there's a connection towards my story and the history of the past. It's still going on today.
I think similar to Iris, once I got to college and started taking a lot of these classes with Professor So, I learned a lot of the history that maybe I didn't learn growing up. In particular, I'm thinking of the one artwork I did that was about the... Hello? Oh, it's back. Okay. Laws passed against Chinese Americans from 1850 to 1867, I think. And just that art piece is kind of talking about a lot of laws that I learned about that I was like, this is insane. We should all know about this. Like the sidewalk ordinance, the cubic air ordinance, just a lot of very targeted laws passed against Chinese Americans that we're trying to pass off as not being targeted, but were very much only affecting Chinese Americans. But yeah.
Yeah, I would say I'm not like an expert, but I did know a lot of some of the history and like discrimination that a lot of Chinese and Chinese Americans went through in America. And I did know about the railroad. Oh, did I do? Okay, wait. That they built the railroad, but I didn't know that they weren't given credit for it. That was kind of infuriating. But I would say too, one aspect that I guess that I learned through like this book, or I became more aware of, was kind of like how like heartbreaking it is to be separated from family and to have to leave your family from another country. And just like the whole topic of immigration, since like I was born and raised here, and like none of my relatives were really like immigrants. Like I just kind of looked more into that perspective, and also just like how emotional it is. Like it makes me like kind of want to cry when I think about it, like a lot, because I'm like, that's so sad, like to be separated from the people that you love, but also to be so brave and work so hard for them. But one thing too is a lot of like the intimidation and violence tactics that a lot of white people would use against Chinese Americans. Like they would cut off their cues, and I didn't know that that meant they couldn't return home. So they were like bullying them and harassing them so that they like say like go back to where you came from. But in doing so, like by like cutting off the cues, like they could not return. So I thought that was really heartbreaking too.
Yeah, so I actually grew up in Arkansas, and it's a very different place from Seattle, and like growing up looking different from everyone else was pretty isolating. So coming to Seattle and like having this opportunity to learn about the community here and everything that has like built up to what we have now was really inspiring and empowering. Like Brooklyn and Iris, I didn't even know about the Chinese involvement with the railroad until participating in this project, which really just goes to show how much of our history's been buried away by Eurocentric studies. So yeah, there's just so much that I've learned about the history here, and it's been really empowering for me personally.
One thing I learned just throughout the entire project, as you're kind of writing through the script, you kind of have to put yourself in that position and really imagine what it was like to be on a ship, like say 93 days, right? If you just close your eyes right now, imagine the rocking, you could feel the wind blowing on your face. Imagine how scary that must have been. But that fear was much lower than the hope the hope was tremendous to know that they can do something about this in Gamsan, in a land they may never have been to before, right? So, right, that was one that was really impactful for me that I learned, because you just kind of reconnecting with that. Another thing is the distance, too. We're talking about, you know, the voyage overseas. We also have a graphic in the comic novella showing the trek on land, how far everyone had to travel to even acquire this opportunity, and much further, right? We're only focused on 3 or 4-ish stories in the book. Gamsan Haks, Wakyuyan, right? It doesn't just stop with just going to America. Maybe it's overseas Chinese to Canada, maybe even to other Asian countries, Malaysia, Indonesia, right? It doesn't just stop right there. So we're focusing on a very small portion of this history, which I think encourages everyone in the audience to start thinking about your history and, you know, share more of your stories too.
All right. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Don't be shy. I'm sure someone else has the same question you have. No? Going once? Going twice? Okay. Oh, wait. Oh, wait, sorry. My bad. Let's walk through here.
I was curious, how many total hours did you think it took for you guys to complete this project?
Any ideas? Any estimations? A lot. Okay, a lot. But he said more than one. But I think if you think about the UW quarter system, right? There's 3 quarters, and we meet up probably like we did first once per week, and it was like a 2-hour session. Okay, do that times however many weeks there are in one quarter, and then that times 3 for the amount of quarters we have, and then add on the fact that I heard drawing maybe sometimes 6 to maybe upwards of 10 hours on their own time for maybe one scene. So count the pages. It's 188. Times that, maybe times 10. And he said plus all the hours we lack sleep from this. We got a little bit from there. And then receiving those same drawings and adding them in, right? Each panel in itself, when I was creating it, let's just say what you saw, that was probably, I don't know, average 5 hours of work per page that you saw, and then plus an additional 5 hours to rewrite the script. Actually, no, that's a really low estimate. But then another 5 hours to make sure the script bubbles lined up with the art that is being received, and then lined up in the layout. Plus the 5 hours, I'm telling them, hey, wait, we gotta add one page or there's a typo. And then plus the 5 hours to send some emails. I don't know how many hours that is, but yo, clap it up, clap it up. Thank you for the question.
I think we have time for about one more question. Anyone want to take the last question?
Okay. So, as someone who's a Black American, I found a lot of listening to the stories about how Chinese immigrants were helping to build the railroad and how they didn't get credit for it. It shows how society doesn't treat people of color, and how it doesn't give enough credit just to. I'm sorry. I stutter a lot.
No worries. No worries.
And knowing how, because I've known a lot of stories about Black culture, and listening to your stories, I found a lot of correlations, a lot of similarities. You know, throughout history, we've been cast aside, even though we were the ones doing the work. That the enemies of society profited off of and took credit for themselves. So my question is, learning about the history through making this project, do you find that you can correlate your stories with other cultures as well?
Great question. And the answer to that, absolutely. You'll notice that there is just tremendous commonalities in a lot of BIPOC communities, a lot of the ethnic enclaves. And that is intentional, again, by those who are in places of power, who have built those systems already, to kind of also pin one from another too, each community. But when you see these stories, right, it's so impactful because you realize we have so much more in common than we do differences. And maybe we say different things, like our languages for the same object might be different, but all in all, our experiences in one way or another is very similar. I'll pass it off to everyone else on the board, but yeah, like that's why it's so important to share these stories, because that is our form of resistance. That is our tremendous resolve.
Well, I think Han summarized it really, really well. But yeah, the short answer is, yeah, 100%. Like, as I mentioned, I grew up in a very different place from Seattle, and like being able to connect my story with people from other cultures and different heritages it's really empowering, it's inspiring, and like to know that we're not alone in this fight as well, and that even now we're still fighting for our presence.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I'm also Black, so I would, when I was writing this or drawing, illustrating this story, like, just there's intersectionality in our oppression and our struggles, like throughout different ethnicities, there is a commonality. So we can definitely all relate, like, in our intersectionality. I personally, yeah, I'm not Chinese, so I don't have any Chinese, like, yeah. So being Black, like, I'm able to still work on this story and relate to cultures and stories and experiences that I may have not personally experienced in the same way, but the undertones and and patterns are still there. So it's definitely a human experience. We can all, you know, relate to feeling oppressed, you know, being marginalized by the system. We have, you know, like a common enemy, but yeah, that's all.
I agree with everything that's been said. I personally, I'm Japanese, so I mean, still East Asian, so very similar struggles, but learning more about, I mean, specifically Chinese history. Since Chinese were a lot of the first immigrants, a lot of what the Chinese experience was then pushed on to the Japanese that came over, and then the Filipino, and then so on and so forth. So finding a lot of commonalities in that, and the ways that the oppression that Chinese Americans first experienced were then pushed on to other Asian communities was definitely a commonality that I learned about and really found interesting and depressing. But yeah, and also, especially in the third book that we're currently working on, we talk a lot more about those kind of commonalities and about a lot of the intersecting kind of oppressions that we all face from the majority, and how, of course, the majority likes to pit ethnic groups against each other to kind of keep us down, but how there's a lot more in common than we might think, and a lot of the ideas that we have of like conflicts between ethnic groups are exaggerated by America to kind of keep us down. So we kind of explore that a bit more in the third book, which I think will be really fun to kind of share with everyone when that comes out.
Yeah, I mean, +1 to everyone what said before. I think I think one thing I'll add is it's following up Hana, is that these are patterns of oppression. I mean, you'll see that especially for Asian or American ethnic studies students, sorry, AES students, you'll hear that, you'll see that the same thing that happened to Chinese Americans will happen to Filipino Americans, as well as black population as well. I mean, all of this is kind of similar to each other. And following the pattern of interconnectedness, I feel like learning through AES we're actually more connected than we thought we are. Even if we think about it, there's a lot of artifacts from American Indians that are very similar to Asia. We see that the Silk Trade route has basically allowed us to trade things. The only reason why we don't see each other as related or similar to one another is because of these oppressions that take place. Okay, thank you.
Well, I feel like everything that was said was so good, so I want to add, I'm trying to think of something to add, but one thing that I did notice that I wanted to say was that because it is systematic, or it's not something we can just fix by tomorrow. It's like an active pursuit to make sure that everyone has equitable access to resources and also the connections that we need. So I feel like addressing this is, the first step is to educate yourself, right? Being aware of what privileges or also oppressions you may face as a person, and also understanding those around you is the first step in really being an active community member, I would say, because like others, my peers have mentioned, you don't want to be pit against someone else when we're all facing a system that doesn't put us in the best position or favor us. So I think just educating yourself on what your situation is, and also how you can help if you're able to, or just having that context is really important and for that fight. So yeah, thanks for the question.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
now
y'all.
We're going to have our, yes, another round of applause. Now we're going to have our panelists and others go to the back part of the auditorium. So if you'd like them to sign books, we've supplied pens for them. Once again, thank you for coming to the premiere. We also wanted to remind people about 2 upcoming events: a book reading of Everything I Learned in a Chinese Restaurant by Curtis Chin on November 1st, 6 p.m. at the Ocean Star Restaurant, and another book reading by Douglas Lee, November 4th at the Wing Luke Museum. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
One more note. There's more snacks in the back, but also be sure to clean up after yourselves. We're very lucky to be able to host this event here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.